truth and love, our college credit card. God will be a strong and useful man. For God and country, freely pledge we all. Led by the flag for which we stand. Blue for the mind that seeks the good and true. Red for our progress in the game. White for the glory of a heart that's pure. Bright with an ever-shining flame. Alma mater, we hail. God give me us and great success. With truth and love, we'll conquer all. Conquer our land and accept flag. Alma mater, we hail. God give me us and great success. With truth and love, we'll conquer all. Conquer our land and accept flag. Truth and love, let us unite again. To our glorious college name. High on the hill, the beacon light is seen, leading our children on to faith. March on to glory is the message Lord. Spread truth and love for far and wide. Loyalty and endurance of guidance. Teacher and pupil side by side. Alma mater, we hail. God give me us and great success. With truth and love, we'll conquer all. For God our land and accept flag. Alma mater, we hail. God give me us and great success. With truth and love, we'll conquer all. For God our land and accept flag.
A very good morning to one and all present here. I, Sana Shad of BSc third year, on behalf of the management, our principal, Dr. K.T. Thomas, and the staff of St. Francis de Sales College, heartily welcome you all to a one-day national webinar on Constitution Day, Protecting Freedom with Responsibility. SFS College was established in 1956 by our venerable founder chairman, late Archbishop Eugene D'Souza, a visionary whose goal was to promote excellence in higher education and foster human values. Inspired by the teachings and love of Jesus Christ and St. Francis de Sales, the college was established to mold young men and women who strive for excellence in all walks of life and human service. It is one of the oldest colleges in the Vidarbha region of Maharashtra and is now one of the premier institutions of Nagpur, Maharashtra. The college offers both graduate and postgraduate programs in arts and sciences and is affiliated to Rashtrasant Tukadoji Maharaj University, Nagpur. Providing a holistic approach, it focuses on overall development of students. In a technology-oriented world, the college strives to constantly upgrade knowledge formation and dissemination by enabling maximum use of technology-enabled teaching and learning resources. Sylvan surroundings, tranquil atmosphere, far away from the hustle and bustle of the city life, making the ambience of institution conducive for learning. Today, we celebrate Constitution Day. The Constitution of India is the supreme law of India, meaning it imparts constitutional supremacy over the parliament. The document lays down the framework demarcating fundamental political code, structure, procedures, powers and duties of government institutions and sets out fundamental rights, directive principles and the duties of citizens. It was adopted by the Constituent Assembly of India on 26th November 1949 and came into effect on 26th January 1950. The original constitution was written in English and Hindi. It wasn't typed but was handwritten by Prem Bihari Narayan Raizada in a flowing italic style with exquisite calligraphy and decorated by artists from Shanti Niketan, including Beohar Ram Manohar Sinha and Nandalal Bose. At the time of commencement, it had 395 articles in 22 parts and 8 schedules. It has been amended 104 times since then. The Constitution declares India a sovereign, socialist, secular, and democratic republic, assuring its citizens justice, equality, liberty, and endeavors to promote fraternity. Today's celebration is to remind ourselves that we, the people of the world's largest democracy, adopted the longest written constitution on earth, and so it becomes our duty to spread awareness about it. The webinar aims to bring awareness about the importance of the Constitution and the thoughts and ideas of Dr. Bhimrao Ramji Ambedkar, famously called Babasaheb Ambedkar, who is regarded as the father of the Indian Constitution. I now take immense pleasure in inviting our chief guest, Most Reverend Elias Gonzalez. Most Reverend Elias Gonzalez was born on 4th of July 1961 in Chulna village, Thane, Maharashtra. He studied at St. Pius X Seminary, Mumbai, and was ordained priest on 1st of April 1990 in Vasai for the Archdiocese of Nagpur. His Grace has a Bachelor of Arts degree in History and Economics from Bombay University, has done his studies in Community-Based Development and Leadership from Coady Institute, Canada, and studies in counseling. His Grace was elected Bishop of Amravati on 11th July 2012 and ordained on 29th September 2012. His Grace was designated as the Archbishop of Amravati on 3rd of December 2018 and was installed as the Metropolitan Archbishop of Nagpur on 27th January 2019. His Grace was a main instrument in forming Western Region Catholic Foundation for Education and is a promoter of Education to Family Values online program for Western Region Catholic schools. I humbly thank Most Reverend Elias Gonzalez for gracing us with his presence and request His Grace to give his valuable inputs and to deliver the inaugural address of today's webinar.
Good morning. Good morning, friends. This morning, we are here for the celebration of the Constitution Day. And I'm very glad to participate and join with you all for this inaugural talk at this hour. I'm here to speak about the importance of our Constitution and to know all of us in our country have a greater and deep respect for the Constitution. We are all aware that the day 26th November has its own importance in the history of independent India. In the year 1949, on this day, our country adopted the Constitution, and later on 26 January 1950, it was brought to effect. But prior to 2015, it was commemorated as the National Law Day since 1979. On the 19th November 2015, the government officially declared that 26th November would be celebrated as Samvidhan Diwas across the country to pay tribute to Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, as this day marked the 125th birth anniversary of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, on 26 November 2015, the chairman of the Constitution Assembly and also the first law minister of the country. The day is celebrated in order to acknowledge the contribution of the framers of the Constitution, their contribution and their valuable contribution to the writing of or collaborating the work together. This day brings us together to strengthen the roots of our democracy and our country and follow the ideology of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar and instill our faith deeper into the constitution of our country for a better tomorrow. At the same time, it is meant to promote and encourage the prominent values and principles that are enshrined in the preamble of our constitution and to bind the diversified nation like India. Preamble has the key features that highlights the values such as justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. This day is celebrated by bringing in subsequent activities pertaining to spreading awareness of fundamental duties amongst the citizens. My dear young people, today when we come together to listen to different speakers, their contribution will surely enlighten us more. But at the end of the day, we all must think, reflect, and meditate more deeply that we should be able to make the preamble of the Constitution and its values more realistic in our day-to-day life. In our country today, we need these values more than ever before. These values need to be assimilated in every individuals of our community and our country. Every citizen should imbibe these values in order that we make our country more and more democratic based on the values that which our founding fathers have given us. My dear friends, Constitution of India highlights both rights and duties of citizens. This is special aspect of our Constitution. The smallest contribution also makes a country strong. As our father of our nation, Mahatma Gandhi, has said, till the last man in the country feels and gets his freedom, that he is free, then only we can truly feel that we are free nation. Today, I wish all the participants an enjoyable day. This constitution that which our founding fathers has given us is a very valuable book, not just to keep on the shelf, but rather to bring it into reality, into our day-to-day life. I wish all of you all the best, and all the speakers, I wish them all the best for today and wish them the best of their contribution for the day. May God bless all of you and God bless our country. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Your Grace, for your informative and inspiring speech. We will definitely strive to become better citizens of India. It was really gratifying to have you here. I now request Nitty Thompson to take over and continue the proceedings.
Thank you, Sana. A warm and splendid morning to one and all present here on this platform. Men are mortal, so are ideas. An idea needs propagation as much as a plant needs watering. Otherwise, both will wither and die. This was rightly said by Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. So, as a citizen of the world's largest democracy, we need to propagate and nurture the rights and duties given in our constitution to every individual of our country. By saying this, I, Nitty Thompson, student of BA, final year, heartily welcome you all to today's webinar on the occasion of Constitution Day. I feel very privileged and honored to welcome our first speaker, Mr. Shilsagar Shankarrao Chahande, to our August gathering. Before I introduce our speaker, I would like to make a small request. Participants, if you have any queries, questions during the presentation, please post it in the Google chat box and YouTube live chat so that I can bring them up after the presentation. We will have question and answer session at the end. Now, let me introduce about our resource person. Mr. Shilsagar sir is the Chief Accounts and Finance Officer of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, Samata Pratistana Nagpur, a government company under Department of Social Justice and Special Assistance, Government of Maharashtra. Sir has completed his BSc in Microbiology and MA in Public Administration. Sir has done immense community works. Sir is interested in and focuses on the career development of the weaker sections of the society. He has also mentored many youths, especially for UPSC and MPSC. He has great interest in painting and street play. It is a great privilege to have you with us on this day. We would like you to share your thoughts on today's topic. So, without much ado, I now hand over the proceeding to Sir. Over to you, sir.
Are you getting my voice, ma'am?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay, yes. Good morning to all of you.
Good morning, sir.
Are you getting my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yes. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. So, friend, today is a very auspicious day, very sacred day. It's not exactly auspicious or sacred in the context of some sorts of the word of differentiation between the sacred and profane world, a world of common man and a world of gods. It's not being like a sacred. It is a sacred or auspicious in the context of a resolution by the freedom fighters to create a future of India, a future for Indians, a future which is a egalitarian future. And the future was instituted through the constitutionalism on the day of 26th November 1949. And thus we are celebrating the day as a Constitution Day on the 26th of November. It is also called as a National Law Day because Constitution is a law, and therefore we are celebrating today as a National Law Day or a Constitution Day, or prominently called as a Samvidhan Diwas. since last 60 years, we are not seeing this word in the masses. But just 3 years ago, government recognized its importance. And after that, there was a GR, there is a government resolution. Through this government resolution, now it is a compulsion on the masses. See, it is a compulsion on the masses to celebrate this day. So on this day, I first of all congratulate to all of you, because it is a very important day of a festivity. In the context of the modern states, the festival shall be a festival of a nation, and the Constitution Day is a festival of a nation, irrespective of all caste, creeds, race, religion, sectarianism. And therefore, it is very essential enough to festivize this day with a more and more higher level of all as the functions and all webinars on all these things. Today, as it is a very auspicious day, on this day, on this dais, I, Mr. Chairman sir, Mr. Principal sir, my friend and honorable guest, Jambhulkar sir, all teachers, faculties of the college, as well as all participants comes from pan-Indian level. My friends, I am delivering this speech on a digital platform. See, this platform is very important enough. This platform cut out the barrier between the speakers as well as the spectators, as well as the participants. There is no dais now. We are all on a common platform without any called as a hierarchy, without any physical differentiation between the dais and the masses. Really, this digital platform creating some sort of the egalitarian platform. It is one of the genesis of, can be called as a genesis of egalitarian society. However, the same digitalization also creating the differentiation, divisions, called as a digital gap. But the digital gaps can be filled up only by the human efforts. That means the human element is very essential enough, very critical enough to establish any sorts of the system. This constitution is also being established, is being enacted and adopted by the human being. Who were they? They were the freedom fighters who fought for the emancipation of these masses, for unshackling this India, not only from the foreign rule at the political level, but also from the all sorts of the shackling, all sorts of the bondation. And therefore, Bhagat Singh once upon a time talked on it. And our great Bhagat Singh said that I considered a democracy only when all sorts of the foundations, not only the political foundations from the foreign rulers, but also the all sorts of the foundations of casteism, of the religiosity, of called as a foundation between the zamindars and the farmers. When all these foundations are being unshackled, then and then we can call a true source of the democracy at the age of 23. And therefore, the constitution, which is being aspiration, which is being a vision, foresight of all those wisdoms who were not being just a writer of this constitution, but who were the freedom fighters who fought for true source of the freedom of this India and Indians. And therefore, my friends, this day is a very auspicious. I am being here joining the webinar of SFS College. SFS College is an institution of excellence in the field of the education since 1956. The year is very crucial enough in the history of India and in the history of Nagpur also. Because on this year, the two revolutions seems to be happened. The first, this institution, an institution of excellence in the education. My friends, education is a potent tool for the emancipation of the human being from all sorts of the depressions, for all sorts of the disempowerments. Selling this potent tool, obviously the institutions of this college is very important enough during that year when it was established. In the same year, there was a second revolution, another revolution in Nagpur, where Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar institutionalized the emancipative movement of a human being in India. Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar was a man of humanity, a man of rationality, a man of radicalism. He was a man who institutionalized first human right movement in India during the Maharashtra Satyagraha. And he was a man who institutionalized the first emancipatory movement at the cultural level. Conversion into the Buddhism was a cultural revolution on the land of India after the thousands years. First revolution was being made by Ashoka, who established India as a true egalitarian society through the establishment of not only Buddhism, but the true source of the secularism. He was the first secular king of India who provided all sorts of the opportunity to his subjects to create two sorts of the citizenry during the ancient time, when there was no such a concept of the citizenship. And after the 1,000 years of that, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar again regenerate Buddhism, a religion of humanity, a religion of rationality, a religion in which everyone treated as equal. And therefore, this year was very crucial enough from my point of view, as this year the SFS College was established as an excellence of educational institution, and in the same year, on the 14th October 1956, through the Parivartana of Dhamma Chakra, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar also institutionalized a new movement to emancipate the all depressed classes from the suckling of bondations, all sorts of the bondation of untouchability and all these things. In this context, I am being thankful for the organizers to invite me on this platform. Okay? So my friends, all our freedom fighters sacrificed their life. It is very hard enough to sacrifice a life. There is a need of courage from the heart to sacrifice a life for the cause of the others. Our freedom fighters fought for the freedom of India from the foreign rules. There was a parallel movement, a political movement to unshackle India from the foreign rulers. On the other hand, there was a parallel movement of a social, cultural emancipation of Indians from all sorts of the bondations. Dear friends, then the society was inequalitarian. The society was compartmentalized. Society was rigidified. It was a historical creation of an egalitarian, inequalitarian, structured, fractioned society, where a majority of sections are living in a subaltern condition, very depressed condition. And therefore, the freedom fighters showing all these things. Just example of even the Indian National Congress, who was in a forefront in the freedom struggle. Within the Indian National Congress, there is also one major group who fought for the social democracy, who fought for the social freedom, and consistently running the parallel sessions, annual sessions during the INC sessions. See, in Pune session, there was one of the memorandum which was unifiedly accepted by the parallel institution of INC, that all sorts of the untouchability has to be vanished from this land first of all, and then we have to think about the political freedom. That means the freedom fighters were true freedom fighters. They were not being fought just for the political freedom. But what we are being listening, the history of India dominated by the political freedoms. And almost all freedom fighters just focus by some historians as just a freedom for political freedom fighters. They were not, my friends, actually political freedom fighters. They were true freedom fighters who wanted to free all these Indians and to make this India a true modern state, a state based on the egalitarian principle. And therefore, what we are being seen, after getting these freedom fighters, they converted, they transformed from the bloodshed revolution to the mass revolution. See, our Indian freedom struggle was a true mass struggle. Almost all citizenry, almost all subjects of the British India were participated in the masses, in the freedom struggle. And therefore, it was truly mass struggle. This mass struggle, this freedom struggle not only influenced the Indian freedom movement, but it also influenced the world movement. Our freedom struggle influenced the African movement. Our freedom struggle influenced the other colonies of the Britishers, other colonies of the French, other colonies of China also. And therefore, what the blood shedded by our freedom fighters is a very crucial enough. As they were true freedom fighters, they wanted to foresight, to establish foresight, a visionary, a wisdom constitution. And therefore, they establish a constituent assembly. My friends, there were a constitution made during the 1950s, like a constitution of Uganda and some African countries. These constitutions were made not by their citizens. These constitutions were made by the Britishers, by the white men. That means these constitutions of African countries are being aligned, are not being created, are not being institutionalized by the citizens of that country. But our constitution is made by the citizens of this country. There was a large allegation, much more criticism, that the Constituent Assembly is not a true reflection of voices or the called as the spirit of the citizens of India. But it is not the case. Though the Constituent Assembly was not directly elected like the Nepal and Sri Lanka, though these constitution of the Sri Lanka and Nepal were being made by the elected people of that countries, but what we have been seeing the condition. Now the Sri Lanka is following Indian constitution as a base to revise their constitution. Nepal now in a crisis. But the Indian constitution since last 60 years consistently sustaining with all sorts of the crises, all sorts of the shocks. And this constitution is not only sustaining itself, but it also conserving, protecting, and enriching Indian democracy, giving the new dynamics to the Indian democracy. It gives the full rights for the self-development of the citizens of the India. So my friends, the freedom fighters were true representatives of the citizens of India. The Constituent Assembly was a microcosm. It was a reflection of all sections of the contemporary society. We have found the women in a large participation. We have found the most barristers, many philosophers, and majority of them are being freedom fighters. And those who were not seems to be at the forefront in the freedom struggle, they were fighting for the social emancipation of the masses. And therefore, Constituent Assembly, my friends, in a true sense, a macrocosm of the Indian spirit. So now there is many allegations, many criticisms on this Constituent Assembly. So there is a need of presenting the true nature or true elements of the Constituent Assembly. So on this day, our first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, he emphasized on the objective resolution. My friends, objective resolution is a very crucial in the Indian context. Objective resolution was a vision of the wisdom of the freedom fighters. It was first time declared in the Lahore Conference on the bank of Ravi River. It was declared by the Nehru himself. And then Chacha Nehru again declared it in the Constituent Assembly, which then converted into our preamble. Our preamble is nothing but the objective resolution of the Constituent Assembly. So, if we see the preamble, we are seeing the very foresightedness. This is the theme of architecture of the Constitution, my friends, chaired by the Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, drafting committee, making a lot of things, particularly Rao's great jurist of the time, read almost all 60 constitution of the world and documented a draft. Then it was a responsibility of the drafting committee of the Constituent Assembly to revise all this draft constitution, which was made by the Rao, sir. It was chaired by the Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. He just peeped into the all aspects of the draft constitution solely because majority of the members of the drafting committee were being unable because of various reasons. 2 members were died, one left to America. So Dr. B.R.Ambedkar got such a source of the great responsibility on his shoulders. And therefore, my friend, even the Jawaharlal Nehru ji in the Constituent Assembly largely emphasized that if the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was not being there, it would be unable enough to make such a sort of the beautiful constitution. And therefore he himself, including P. Krishnamachari, titled, giving a title to the Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar as architect of the Indian Constitution, called as a Shilsakar of Bharatiya Samvidhan. So in this constitution, what we have been saying that almost all freedom fighters on the 26th November, on this day in 1949, adopt, enact, and give ourselves. So on behalf of the people, give ourselves. On behalf of the people, they were adopting, not just adopting, but enacting and acculturating as citizens of India this constitution, and signed by almost all members of the Constituent Assembly. Then this Constituent Assembly, my friends, immediately converted into the Parliament of India till the fresh elections. During that time, the Constituent Assembly was working parallelly as a two institution. On one side, it worked as a Constituent Assembly to draft the constitution for the modern India, for the free India. And on the other hand, performing the all parliamentary functions to make almost all policy makings during the time. And therefore, what we are being seeing, the Constituent Assembly simultaneously chaired by the two presidents. Constituent Assembly by one president, and the Parliament, as when performing the Parliament, by the another president. That president was called as a speaker, and this president is called as a chairman. So we are seeing the two presiding officers of the Constituent Assembly. My friends, this is a very important enough. On this day, it is a duty of all citizens to read this preamble. So I am just reading this preamble because it is very important enough. Okay? The Constitution of India having a preamble, which was being a culmination of objective resolution put forward by the Jawaharlal Nehru. See, first word, we the people of India. We the people of India. The word itself seems to be a unification of the collectivity. We here, but the word the specified the unification of all the citizens of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, and to secure to all its citizens justice, social, economic, and political, liberty of thought and expression, belief, faith, and worship, equality of status and of opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. In our Constituent Assembly, this 26th day of November 1949, do hereby adopt, enact, and to give ourselves this Constitution. My friend, the word itself, we the people, connotes that this Constitution is made by the people, for the people, and just for the emancipation of the citizen as a whole, not for some sections of the society, not for a peculiar person, not for the particular person. This Constitution shows the collectivity. This Constitution shows that everyone have a right, everyone have a freedom, but the freedom is not big without any limits. The freedom is not connotes anarchy. Here the freedom connotes the disciplined freedom, dutiful freedom, a freedom in a collectivity. And this, therefore, this preamble is a very important enough. It's a mirror of a vision of the forefathers. And therefore, every one of us has to be, this is to be rich enough, drilled enough, acculturated enough. We have to make a way of life according to this principle. Our life shall be like this. It is the need of the hour. We have to develop the nationalism. Without the lack of nationalism, we can create called as an anarchic society. Anarchy is antithetical to the development. Anarchy is antithetical to the sustainability. Then we might be, without the disciplined freedom, we might be transformed into different sorts of, they called as a slave nation. Okay, so friends, what this constitution is given us, this constitution given us a freedom, unshackling the Indian citizenry. The constitution particularly depicted the fundamental rights. The word fundamental connotes that these are very basic, very essential enough, very inevitable enough for the self-development of each and every Indian. There are, see, the right to equality, right to freedom, right against the exploitation, right to freedom of a religion, right to freedom of the cultural and education, right to constitutional remedies. The last one is very crucial enough. All these rights having no use if we have not any right of any constitutional remedies, means to if there is no provision to protect these rights, then there is a new use of rights. So there is a need of a protection of our rights. So constitutional remedies is providing the protection of rights of a citizenry of India. Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar has said in the Constituent Assembly that it is the soul of the Constitution. Without it, there is no use of all sorts of the freedoms, all sorts of the rights. My friends, why there is a need of a right? Why there is a need of right? As a human being, we need a space. Two sorts of the space. One is the extrinsic space and another one is the intrinsic space. Extrinsic space means space in the society where everyone shall be treated equally, irrespective of his socio-economic status, so that this extrinsic space can give a chance, opportunity for the self-development, to creating his own space of the development. Without this extrinsic space, without the place of an individual in the society, individual can't be a prize, can't develop. Because we are a human being and we are a social animal. We are not being living in a solo. Our development, our existence itself is depend on the society. But if the society is not giving us space, and if the society is trying to curtail, try to restrain our space, then there is an issue. See, the problem of India historically, as the society is being structured on the non-egalitarian foundations, where there is a one section called as an invisible section. Historically, majority of the people, major chunk of the population were living in an invisibility. That means they were not considered as a part of the society. What happened? What consequences happened because of this? We are facing the problem of the underdevelopment of India. We are losing lot of brain, lot of time. And therefore, almost all this structured society is responsible for today's backwardness at the global level. We are Indians having a great brain. We are dominating Silicon Valley, are dominating world, but individually. As a collectivity, we are as historically become structured, compartmentalized. We are not creating proper space for the human development. And just because of the lack of this space, we are facing the problem of the backwardness. We are a third world country. How many years then we are being now? We have to emancipate ourselves. And therefore, the Constitution provides these rights. Intrinsic rights. Intrinsic rights are very important enough for the intrinsic development. Human being is not called as an animal. He's a social animal. He's a human animal. Animal with a fuzzy mind. Animal with a creativity. Animal having its own soul. And therefore, individual need to be developed by his soul also, not by his material. And there is a need for intrinsic space for this development of the soul. My friend, I am being a painter. I am also being a drama writer. I know what is the importance of the creativity. Without intrinsic space, that means without intrinsic freedom, it not be possible enough to develop a creativity in the mind. There is a need of peace. There is a need of guarantee that what I speak, what I think, need to be placed in the society, need to be accepted in the society. And therefore, there is a need of a proper discourse based on the freedom. Then what sorts of the society we need? We need some sort of the argumentative society. Amartya Sen in his one of the great book, Argumentative Indians, it's a very marvelous book. In Argumentative Indian, Amartya Sen tried to depict the argumentative history of the India. And he tried to emphasize that in the ancient phenomena, as our history, whole history, since the ancient times, if being an argumentative society, then now why in the current scenario, we are being enforced by such sorts of the barriers where the freedom of expression, freedom of thought is not being allowed. Without the freedom of thought, without the freedom of expression, it is not possible of any discourse. And without any discourse, it is not any possibility of a development of the society. These are only thoughts. These are only thoughts of the individual in argumentation, which gives the opportunity for creating the new synthesis. From one thesis, then comes antithesis, and then through this called as a churning of this thesis and antithesis, we are creating the synthesis, a new form, a new society, a new dimension. And therefore, my friends, there is a need of two space. This freedom, this fundamental rights is providing the space of extrinsic and intrinsic development. Without it, we cannot protect our, we cannot develop our personality. And therefore, we have to conserve, we have to protect these rights. And the Constitution is providing the remedies of to protect these rights. We have to avail these remedies. Yes, of course, Indian citizens are very active enough since the enactment of the Constitution. You know, when the Constitution was enacted, since then, the Indian citizens have been used, had been cherished this Constitution. In the one of the great book called as the People's Constitution by Day, it was written by the Day. Rohit Day was a great person, young charm. He written this book, People's Constitution, and within this book, he depicted, he tried to explain that how the common citizen of India use these constitutional remedies and enrich this Constitution. in his introductory part, he tried to analyze how the freedom and the inaction of the constitution increasing the numbers of writ petitions than the civil petitions. Before the independence, there were large civil petitions in the British courts of the India. But after independence, when we adopting and providing this right to constitutional remedies under Article 32, which considered as a soul of constitution by Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, they emphasize that after this provision, the writ petition had been increasing consistently. Now we are saying there is a major cases in the Supreme Court and High Courts which are being used through this under Article 32 and in the High Court under Article 226. So obviously these freedoms are to be protected and conserved for the development of the individual. And without the development of individual, we cannot say India can be prosper and be developed. However, my friends, what is a paradox in the society? On the eve of inaction of the Constitution of India, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar put a conscious statement, a statement of a paradox. What he said, on the 26th of January 1950, we were going into the life of contradictions. In the politics, we will have equality, and in the social and economic life, we will have inequality. In politics, we will be recognizing the principle of one man, one vote, and one vote, one value. In our social and economic life, we shall, by the reason of our social and economic structure, continue to deny. In 1949, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar put forward this conscious lingering into the poverty. But if we are considered way as about 60 crores of the population lingering into the poverty, we are seeing this scenario in the COVID situation. We are seeing the domestic violence, women's exploitation, rape, communal violence, lynching of the depressed classes. All these paradoxes are lingering consistently. Why this paradox, my friends? Why this scenario has been increasing consistently? Because of the deformities in the institutions, in the functions of the institution. We are seeing the criminalization of the politics and politicization of the criminals. We are also seeing the en masse visibility of the corruption, decreasing the functionality of the judicial system, religious fundamentalism. The whole society seems to be, whole civil society seems to be moribund. We are in the dysfunctional form of the civil society. Society institutions are commercialized. See, the best example is the example of education. There is a commercialization of education. There is a screaming in the society. Then, what we are in need? Why this problem is being there? Bapu, our father of nation. Bapu said, source of right is a duty. Once upon a time, someone asking Bapuji, what is meant by the sovereignty? So Bapuji said that sovereignty means a freedom, means a right. But how the rights can come without the duty? Both shall be in correspondence. Both shall be in tandem. If we are, as a citizen of India, crying for the rights, try to protect our rights, at the same time we have to need to see our duty. We have to follow our duty. We must have to be disciplined citizen of India. And therefore, what we are being seeing after the 42nd Amendment in 1976, and in the 1970s, the contemporary government seeing there is a problem of being not following the citizens their duties towards the nation, and therefore a nursing committee was being established, and then by the 42nd Amendment in 1976 we adopted these fundamental duties. Originally it was being around 10, and now there is a 11 under Article 15A. There is a separate article and separate section in the Constitution of India. See, we can see in a brief, just brief. The first important fundamental duties are abide by the Constitution and respect its ideas and the institutions. Cherish and follow the noble ideals of the freedom struggle. Protect sovereignty, unity and integrity of the India. Defend the country, and whenever the country is calling for service, you have to be. Promote harmony and spirit of a common brotherhood. Preserve composite culture. Protect and improve the natural environment. Develop scientific temper, humanism. Strive toward excellence. Safeguard public property. Provide educational opportunities to the children. My friends, is there any need to tell by the Constitution to the citizen such fundamental duties? What is meant by citizen? Citizen means a dutiful man. Citizen means a man, a human with full rights and full responsibilities. A citizen shall have to share his nation is his home. And if we are saying that as we are citizens and claiming just rights at the cost of the duties, then what is the use of becoming a citizen of India? Nowadays we are seeing truly in an anarchic position, anarchic condition. The youngsters didn't know anything about the Constitution. Government now thinking over it. And therefore there is a need to include all these even in a curricula compulsively. There is a need to change the whole mindset of the Indian citizens. Then and then it can be possible enough to preserve our country's culture. There is a one word, very important word, composite culture. I know in one of my attempt of UPSC Civil Services, I was written one of the essay in my mains on this word, composite culture. What is meant by composite culture? My friends, India is a melting pot of the world culture. Melting pot, it's very important enough. India have ability to take all cultures of the world. It is a cosmopolitan country. We are adopting all cultures, not just adopting. We are being assimilating. We have a great ability of assimilation of all cultures of the world and making the composite a unified, but giving the identity to each and every culture. So we are preserving the unity in diversity since the history. And now we are living in a different condition. We are being lingering into the traditions. We are lingering into the communalist element, fundamentalist element, anarchist element. Just we are being following some sort of the social evils like the honor killing and all these things. Where we are, there is a question whether we are being dutiful citizens. Therefore, there is a need to follow all these elements. So, my friends, what is the need? What is the basic problems with the Indian citizens? We need to establish a called as a stable cultured society. We are not focusing on the social aspects. We are focusing on the material aspects of the society. We are living in a demonstration world of demonstration. Now, we are living in the world of materialism. We are not being following the call as a disciplined society. There is a need to establish the disciplined society. How we can establish the disciplined society? My friend, there is a need of proper institutionalization of socialization. We have a great culture. We have a great patterns and the social systems of the socialization. But in the race of materialism, we are missing our culture. See, I am submitting here one of the great book of Ruth Benedict. Ruth Benedict was a great anthropologist. She written the one book called as The Chrysanthemum and Sword. She tried to analyze the disciplined citizens of Japan. She found out the root cause of a disciplinary element within the Japanese. And she tried to explain that there is a proper socialization of Japanese citizens since the childhood, which is a responsible factor for the disciplined Japan. We have also culture. See, Amartya Sen is written in his book of Argumentative Citizens. Why we are missing our culture of a great socialization? There is a need, again, reinstitutionalization of socialization, regeneration of our social systems. And then we can establish, we can make us disciplined citizenry. Without disciplined citizenry, it's not being possible enough, my friends, to establish a two sorts of the egalitarian society. A society which is based on the democratic ethos. What Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar in the Constituent Assembly emphasized the vision of democratization of the society. He said the political democracy cannot last unless there lies at a base of a social democracy. What does the social democracy mean? Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar said, it means a way of life which recognizes liberty, equality, and fraternity as a principle of a life. And he argued that all these trinities, liberty, equality, and fraternity, shall be in tandem. Without any exceptions of any sorts of the trinity, none of the other two can fulfill the requirement of establishment of the social democracy. And therefore, there is a need of protecting our freedom, make honorable, disciplined citizens, need to preserve, enhance, enrich our equalitarian element, and also creating the space for the others' development, for the others' equality. And this has to be happen with the brotherhood environment. Then we can integrate this India into an egalitarian society. My friends, on this day, we have to resolve to create a space for ourselves and also create a space for other brothers of this India to make a coordinative space, a space which is to be in a tandem with each other on the basis of the fraternity, on the basis of the true sense of the brotherhood. And then we can truly create India, one of the humanistic nation, one of the sustainable nation of this world. In the history, my friends, we are giving lot of ideas, philosophies to this world. Now it is a responsibility of modern citizens of India to give the new dimension, new ideas, new philosophy to the world through the establishment of the two sorts of the egalitarian society. My friends, I think I have submitting a lot of words and taking your substantial time. I think I'm making more time investing more time of you. With these words, I take a leave of all of you. Thank you for listening my words on this day. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for such a motivating and inspiring talk. The talk on compulsion of masses to celebrate the day, also the emancipative movement by Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar in 1956, from duties of citizens to the socialization to build the disciplined citizens. It was really a wonderful and brilliant session. We solemnly hope to become the Indians who will make our country proud. So, we have received few questions from our participants, with which your permission I would like to forward you.
I will try to explain based on my knowledge. Please, any questions from your side?
Need to know about the Constitution. So how to use this thought process and encourage all to know their Constitution?
Ma'am, can you please repeat, because I'm just missing your voice.
Okay, sir. I will do. The youth of today has stereotypical thought. People of certain professions need to know about the Constitution. So, to change this thought process and encourage everyone to know their Constitution.
Again, I'm not getting, sorry. Please, remain in written form. Your voice is saying, humming up. Voice is humming up. So I'm not being properly listening. Can you chat with me? The question? I'm not showing question, ma'am. I'm not being seeing any question.
Your voice, your audio is not properly audible.
Yes, yes.
Sir, question is,
Huh.
the question is, the youth of today
Yes.
have a typical thought. They only people of certain profession need to know about the Constitution. So how to
Yes.
change this thought process and encourage all to know their Constitution?
Okay. This is the issue of today's youth. What is the basic issue? That's why I'm focusing on the socialization part. What is the basic issue in the context of India? See, in France, there is a one compulsive element called as a black coated teachers. There is a one class compulsion from KG to PG in French to learn about the all ethics of the French history. There is a one black coated teacher who used to taught all these things on daily basis. It is a compulsion in France. If there is such a source of the compulsion institutionalized in India at the societal level as well as at the institutional level, at the educational institution level, then and then only it can be possible, because cherishing or acculturating anything is not a one-time job. Just see, today we are being celebrating this day. This is not being solution. It is a one way of acculturation. There is a need of a continuous process. what we are being seeing, the today's youth is not having any experience of any sorts of the difficulty of the life. The freedom fighters experience their struggle. After that, the first and second generation experience their struggle of the life as masses were coming out of the called as downtrodden conditions. But what we are seeing nowadays, because of the some sort of the enhancing called as a living style or living life, even the masses or the youth from the downtrodden is not in a position to understand the struggle. Without the lack of struggle, we are not in a position to understand all these lofty goals, lofty ideals. So there is a need to institutionalize, even at the educational level. The college can make a compulsion on these elements. We can also establish a daily class, or being a first class can be start with the reading of the preamble, or asking anyone on a weekly basis, or making a quiz. All these various modes might be there to call as a salvation of youth. There is a need of salvation of youth, today's youth. All these youth are shackled in the mobile era, in the digitalized era, in the era of called as a jazz culture. There is a one great sociologist, a Russian sociologist called Piritam Sorokin. He said that today's world is a world of a jazz culture. Jazz culture means culture without any meaning. So we are living in the culture without any meaning. So we have to need to regenerate our past, regenerate our egalitarian culture, and there is a need to institutionalize all these things. I think this is the only way to call as changing the mindset of the youth. Okay, it is not a one-time job, sir. I think there is a one question asked by the Padmalochan Raut. He asked me the meaning of pictures given originally Constitution drawn by Nandalal Bose. There is a many arguments against and in favor of this. There is a depiction of Ramayana and Mahabharata in the whole Constitution, original Constitution. I seen this original document in Delhi. I went to Alipur Road. In Alipur Road, there is a great monument made on the name of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. And there is a one copy. It is also being digitalized there. And I seen there the depiction. See, these pictures reflecting the philosophy. These pictures were not reflecting any religious ethos. Be clear. These two great epics reflecting the philosophy of Indian culture, philosophy of sacrifice, philosophy of devotion, philosophy of claiming rights, philosophy of organized work, philosophy of owing to the words. This is the philosophy. Don't be give touch of religious ethos to this philosophy. But what we are being? We are living in the world of opportunism, where for the sake of power, we are misusing the opportunities and the chaotic condition of the society. That is a major problem. And all these pictures were depicted, were being drawn by the Shanti Niketan painters, including Nandalal Bose. So don't consider different. The philosophy, it was a philosophy. It was not being depicting any religious ethos. Okay, right? Yes, thank you.
So the next question is,
yes,
what change is required in Constitution with current developments, but dilemma of elections hamper certain things?
please, can you give me it in a written form?
Excuse me, sir. The question is given in the chat box.
Yes, please.
The question is, much change is required in
Yes, I'm reading
Constitution.
here. Yes, I'm reading here. Much change is required in the constitution with the current developments. But dilemma of politics and elections hampers certain things. You think that the change will take place, at least in cases which are not stigmatized? Yes, of course. See, in the society never being static, even within the rigidified condition, society had been their space. Since the history, I'm just giving one of the example of early medieval India. In the early medieval India, that means after the counter-revolution of the Shunga, where the Maurya rule was being devastated, and then the rigidification again being established in the Indian subcontinent. Even during that time, there was a space of heterodoxy. Even the philosophy and ideas of a different religion, a different sex were flourishing. And the Jainism, which was being started during the Buddhism, then flourished in the South India, particularly during the time of the Pandyas and Cholas. That means there is a full possibility of space. What the civil society is being utilizing, at what level, that is a major issue. Nowadays also, what we are being seeing the picture, big picture of some chaos and all these things, that is not the case. Go at the grassroots level. See the churning of the society. See the dynamics of the society. I'm been working since last 20 years at the grassroots level. My work is being just sensitizing the youth for the career development. And I'm always being focusing on some sort of the civil services areas. I'm saying there is a lot of churning, even at the subaltern level. The youth from the poor sections of the society want something. What is the need to give some directions to this youth? Youth have energy. What is this? This is the one section. Politics is a one part of the society. Be clear, it is not a major part of the society. Politics is there because of the society. Society is not because of the politics. But what we are being nowadays, just we are creating the picture of the politics means all these things. This is the wrong. Why this is happened? Just because of the nexus between the opportunist politicians and the businessman and some sort of the NGOs. What? And properly, it is being very properly analyzed by the Hora Committee. Hora Committee was being made in 1997 to analyze the corruption cases. And Hora Committee put forward very meticulously this situation. The Hora Committee said that there is a nexus between the Lala, Bhola and Jhola. That is a problem of India. But what is the major problem beyond this statement? What is the major problem? The citizenry are not coming into the collectivity. They are working in the groups. But they are not being properly integrated. And these opportunist politicians and all these nexus are not being they are being consistently working to create all this disintegrative phenomena. So it is a responsibility of citizen, and there is a definitely space for the change. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you.
Once a great man whispered, feeling thankfulness and not expressing it is like wrapping a present and not giving it. Today, I take this opportunity to put all our gratitudes into words. Thank you, sir. It was really a wonderful and brilliant session, full of knowledge and interesting facts. It gave deep insight about the topic, although along with freedom comes great responsibility, and I am sure all of us will uphold and are aware of the significance and vitality of the Indian Constitution and its efforts and its effects on our everyday life. I also thank you for the convincing replies and bestowing on us such a wonderful topic. Once again, I thank you, sir. Now, I hand over the further proceedings to Chitika for the second session.
Thank you, ma'am. Constitution is not a mere lawyer's document. It is a vehicle of life, and its spirit is always the spirit of age. These are the great lines set by Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. And who can better know the power of the Constitution than a professor who teaches political science at our very prestigious Rashtrasan Tukdoji Maharaj Nagpur University, Dr. Vikas Jambhulkar, sir. So I, Jitika Bhatta of BSc Sem 5, take this opportunity of introducing the second speaker of today's webinar, Dr. Vikas Jambhulkar, sir. Before listening to his wise words, I would like to mention a few milestones of his accomplishments from his vast array of successes. Sir has received his doctorate from RTM in the Department of Political Science. The topic of his thesis was 20 years of Supreme Court's judgment on reservations and its implications on public policy. He was awarded MPhil degree from the Center for International Politics, CIPOD Center, School of International Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University on the topic Islam in Contemporary International Politics. Dr. Jambhulkar is the coordinator of the IAS Coaching Center funded by Bharti, a state government initiative from the year 2012. Sir has also worked as the chief editor of the Journal of Interdisciplinary Policy Research and Action Nagpur since January 2009 to 2011. Sir was invited by the Chinese government on a think tank delegate visit to China in April 2016. He was also invited by the US government on the study program of the US Institutes in June 2016. Recently, Sir was invited by the Department of Political Science, Hatice University, Ankara, Turkey, for presenting a paper in the international conference in the year 2018. Sir has worked on the project initiated by RTMNU on farmer suicide. He has also worked on 2 projects initiated by the Tata Institute of Social Sciences on the issues of employability and sustainable livelihood and food and drug safety. It is a great honor to have you with us, sir, and we are looking forward to listen to you. Before we begin, I would like to request our participants to post their queries on Google chat box or YouTube live chat box in the process of the talk. They will be taken up by sir after his talk. Now, I would like to hand the proceedings to you, sir. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Jitika, for such a generous introduction. I do not know whether I deserve that much of a generosity, but surely I should thank you again for that. I hope, should I deliver my speech in English only, or should I keep it a mix of English-Hindi? What would you prefer?
Sir, as you wish. Whatever you're comfortable with, sir.
Okay, fine. So predominantly, I'll keep my lecture in English, and for some convenience, I will sometimes switch the Hindi language into it so that it makes more sense. Yeah, Hindi has a greater vocabulary in terms of expression. So I guess both these languages can be really helpful in terms of like expressing what I would like to say. So at the outset, let me thank words of gratitude to SFS College, which has given me this opportunity to express my opinion in front of you. I would like to thank the principal at the outset, Dr. K.T. Thomas, teachers, support staff who have organized this program, and obviously the student friends who have been really very active in organizing as well as attending as also participating in the deliberations. I'm grateful to Elias Gonsalves, who has presented his introductory statement on the seminar and provided us the lead. I am also very thankful to Mr. Shilsagar Chahande, sir. I have known him for a long time, and he has a reputation among the students, not just in Nagpur but in Vidarbha as well as in Maharashtra. He has always been such an activist, despite the fact that he is a government servant, and has been so proactively guiding students as well as carrying on the sensitization programs on the Constitution of India. He has made a lot of work such easy for me so that I can skip many things and can focus upon only very few. So what my proposal right now is that I'm not going to bore you for a long time, and I'll keep it short so that we can have more question and answers. What my point of deliberation will be to lead you to those key elements where this discussion can actually take shape, right? So today, as we are seeing, let me share my PPT to you. I hope you are able to see this. Can anybody confirm?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you. So today, as we see, it is like we are celebrating the Constitution Day, right? And as we can calculate, from 49 to today, that is 2020, it is 71 years have completed, as well as it is the 72nd Constitution Day that we are celebrating. It is this day when the Constitution actually was adopted, and therefore we need to ask certain things. Why should we really join the celebration of celebrating this Constitution? And yes, we have very, very important reasons for doing so. And what are those reasons when I say we have very important reasons of doing so? Precisely because this Constitution has come after a very long period of a political society that we have seen in India. So it is after a 2,500 years of Indian history that we see.
Me, sir.
Yes.
So we aren't able to see your PowerPoint presentation, sir.
Are you unable to see it?
Yes, sir. We can't see it. We can see you,
Okay.
but we can't see the PPT.
Okay, I'll check again. I'll go through it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Present now the entire screen. Okay. So now most probably you'll be able to see it. Now can you see that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now we're able to see
Okay,
it.
great. Okay,
Yes.
okay. Yeah. Just hold on for a moment. Yeah. So yes. So what I was saying was, years of active political history of this country or this subcontinent that we would like to say. Most of the regimes throughout the history has tried to unify this subcontinent. What we have done today, that is on this Constitution Day, was that we unified this subcontinent into a nation state, and it is precisely that this is one of the biggest projects that was taking place, probably after the American experiment, right? And if we actually look in terms of population, probably it is the biggest experiment in the history of this planet. And this is a democratic experiment that was taking place. So I guess every citizen of this country, every person of this country, every youth, every woman of this country should be proud enough to make this day and to celebrate this day as a Constitution Day for the achievements that we have come into being. So I guess it is the celebration of that achievement, right? Secondly, what I would like to say is that apart from that, this is a grand experiment. It is also an experiment of democracy, right? So we have adapted a constitution and given to ourselves a democratic form of government, right? And unified this whole subcontinent into one. and with so much of diversities and all that that has been already said into the lecture. So this whole project has been a marvelous project, and therefore this celebration makes a lot of significance. So why it is important again is that this constitution creates a moral framework. And if you go and talk about things, when we talk about politics, or we talk about society, or you talk about religion, what is the core to it? Even if you talk about philosophy, what is the core to it? The core is what kind of moral principles or values it is able to raise or discuss, right? So what we have been successful in doing was to create a completely different moral framework for ourselves, a completely modern moral framework for ourselves, right? And this modern moral framework is, I guess, is a new religion for us. It's a new dharma or a dhamma for our nation. So I guess this constitution in itself contains all those principles which are required and which can guide us into a modern life, right? And therefore, this constitution is one of the most important constitution by creating these modern values and by inculcating these modern values into the document. But then, apart from that, when you are talking about this modern values, so what do we constitute? But before that, let me come to some different element, and let me come again, because a lot had been talked about Dr. Ambedkar, but one thing has gone, one thing somebody didn't mention, and that is what is all about constitutional morality. And despite when we are talking about celebrating the constitution, what Babasaheb Ambedkar is actually hinting us is at the very essence of the constitutionalism. And what is this essence of constitutionalism? The essence of constitutionalism is constitutional morality. So what is constitutional morality? And there he quotes Grosse and says, it is a paramount reverence for the forms of the constitution, right? That you should be able to that the constitution is the supreme, and you should abide by the form of this constitution, enforcing obedience to authority, acting under and within these forms, yet combined with the habit of open speech. This is a very important statement. And what it says, that you are enforcing yourself under the obedience of an authority. The constitution creates a political authority, a legal authority, and you have to obey these legal authorities, right? But not withdrawing in any form the habit of open speech. So this open speech is such an important element. Apart from that, you obey the authority, you do not just submit to it, but also you do it with open speech. Of action subject only to definite legal control and unrestrained censure of those very authorities as to all their public acts combined. So this is what he quotes from Grosse, and then he comes to the Indian situation and says, constitutional morality is not a natural sentiment. He says that it is not a natural sentiment, means like hunger. It is not like that. It is not a natural sentiment. It has to be cultivated. You have to learn it. You have to socialize yourself into these conditions. We must realize that our people have yet to learn it. Democracy in India is only a top dressing on an Indian soil, which is essentially undemocratic. Now, this is what I guess is one of the very important statements that he makes in the final speech that he makes in the Constituent Assembly. That we as a people need to learn this constitutional morality, need to learn to respect our institution, need to learn to respect the values we stand for, and need to learn to abide by those values. So these are something which this constitutional morality requires, this modern constitutional morality requires. And therefore, this is the pitfall. This is the danger. If we do not learn it, if we do not socialize ourselves into it, then obviously there are more dangers. And then even if we are talking about democracy, we will be essentially an undemocratic society. So let us move ahead then. So what do we constitute in a way? Oh, sorry. So these are some of the graffitis that I've included in between, just to make sense of what it is. These are like our habitual cages in our mind, and we are unable to get out of it. We keep ourselves into boxes, and we see life only in a particular way, and that is what is actually very, very in a way. If you are not able to free your mind, then what are you? Is a big question. Another graffiti is of speech, and this speech is controlled by not just one segment, but then it is controlled by many segments. And the speech is controlled within our houses, in our society, sometimes by the governments and many other stuff. So the speech is a cardinal value of a democratic society. So these are something, some graffitis which are like very telling, and therefore I guess we remember that famous Tagore's poetry from Gitanjali, into that freedom of mind that led my country awake, was a very famous line that he wrote into that Gitanjali. So unless and until the mind is free, I don't think there is any freedom. And despite that, you might not be in chains, you might be roaming around, and you might not be like controlled by anybody. But if your mind itself is not free, and if you cannot think freely, then obviously you are a definite slave. That is what Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar says. And therefore, freedom is to claim that human personality. If one believes in the dogma, this is again Ambedkar, if one believes in the dogma of Mill, that one class is not fit to rule another country, we must also admit that one class is also not fit to rule another class. Now, this he is saying in terms of an Indian society, which is so much based upon the differentiation of castes and this hierarchical relationship of caste. And he says that no one caste can claim itself as a superior and can claim itself as a right to govern the other class and decide for the other class, right? And the other caste. So if we believe in Mill that no country can rule other country when we are talking about the colonialization of India by the British, then we should also believe in this fact that no society or no caste or class should have an authority to govern another class. So it is not just of political independence, another quote of Ambedkar, it's not just enough to have political independence and political equality, but also social and economic equality as well. So these are some of the quotes of Ambedkar, and when we are talking about these quotes will actually come into play. So what is an act of constituting? So we are talking about, yes, we are celebrating constitution, हम constitution celebrate कर रहे हैं, और लेकिन constitution करता क्या है, क्या constitute करता है, ultimately होता क्या है, what is it exactly? So it is an act of making or creating something. Imagine yourself, it's like I can talk this to the students particularly, and I imagine yourself that you want to form a club, any society, a reading club, and you have like some 8-10 members or friends who want to be a part of those clubs. So what you will do, you will lay down the norms of those clubs, right? And when you are laying down the norms of those clubs, you are actually giving birth to that club. So this is what a constitution is taking place. We are constituting at a very large scale, a very large number of population, and we are trying to make those kind of governing norms which can be like which are in a way agreeable to everyone. So it is an act of making or creating something. It is an exercise of freedom to create something. So when we are talking about our topic of freedom, then what exactly are we exercising? We are exercising our freedom. What is that freedom? Our free will, that we want to constitute something. The Constituent Assembly was exercising its free will to constitute India as a sovereign nation. And this act of free will is such an important act. This freedom has to be there before constituting anything. The Constitution does provide us freedom, but to constitute itself requires that freedom, right? And therefore, freedom essentially is not a predisposition of law, but is intrinsic in the human being. And that is where the Universal Declaration of Human Rights says that man is born free and equal, right? So that is what is very important to understand, that we are born free and equal. Nobody is above or below us, and nobody can control, nobody has an authority to enslave us. So this is what is very important to understand. To create something requires that freedom to create that thing, and that is a freedom which is very important. The freedom to exercise our will to create something. So this something in our political life is a creation of a political order. So what is the Constitution doing? Constitution is actually creating a political order, right? This is not for one, but for the political society. जो एक political society है, जो अपने आप को nation के रूप में identify करना चाहती है और अपने आप के लिए एक state तैयार करना चाहती है, वो constitution बनाती है, right? It comes together, it identifies a political program for itself and thereby give to itself a constitution and thereby create a political order for itself. So it is a will of a population to a nationhood, and that is how we also create in that process an idea of nationhood also. So a nationhood can be an idea after the Constitution, can be an idea before the Constitution, but a nationhood is primarily has to be there. You need to constitute a nation at the first place, right? So this population willingness to constitute itself as a nation is a prior condition when you are constituting something like a document called as a constitution. Sorry, is there any instruction for me?
Good afternoon.
Is this an instruction for me? Somebody is speaking in between.
No, sir, somebody's mic is on by mistake.
Okay, fine. So this is what. So what is the act of constituting? It's an exercise of freedom. So in India, as we have seen, when the Britishers came, it is the earlier through law and through education. This earlier colonial period was identified, and therefore, as we see, the earlier reformers were trying to reform the society by introduction of certain laws or through the education process and trying to create a consciousness of a modern kind. Later, there is this whole process of the low cost response to the upper caste, and you see social movements all over the India, particularly from the lower caste, are emerging, which are challenging the operation or well as the control of the upper caste. And then the third stage, we see the whole idea of nationalism emerging from the national movement against the colonial rule. So these are the stages through which we have gone, and we finally arrived after the cabinet plan, which constituted a constituent assembly, and thereby we started making this constitution. So finally then, what is a constitution? So a constitution is a contract. It is a contract between the people. And what does a contract do? Whenever we are writing down something, we are basically trying to limit things to the written word, right? So what we create is, we create a limited form of government, that the government which is going to govern will have powers only to the extent of what has been written in the constitution. So modern states are large in size, and therefore the idea of representative government, since there are these two conditions. Earlier, as you might have read, there used to be direct democracies, small republics, wherein every citizen used to participate in the decision-making process of that state or that republic. So there was no need of a representative government. But modern states are larger in sizes, and therefore direct democracies are not possible. Not everybody can participate in the decision-making process, and therefore we have come to evolve a representative form of government. And since we are representing somebody to form a government, it is very necessary that they are limited by the powers of the Constitution. So we tell them that, look, these are the terms of reference by which you are limited, and you can act only within the powers that are provided in this document. So, since the principle of representative government, therefore, is an idea of written code for the guidance in the governance. So, what does it constitute? Again, it constitutes the basic structure. What basically all constitutions, what they do, they come up with the basic structure of the constitution. So what is the basic structure? The basic structure is they evolve or they establish the instruments of government. That is the legislature, the executive, the judiciary. These are the three very important pillars of modern government, and therefore they come up with these institutions of government at the first place, which are going to govern. Then they establish a relationship between these institutions. What kind of a relationship they will share between the institutions? So what is the relationship of a legislature with the executive? And what is the relationship of the executive with the judiciary? What is the relationship of the judiciary with the legislature, and so on and so forth, right? So these main organs of the government are established, and the relationship between these organizations or organs of the government are also laid down in the Constitution. Secondly, and what is, I guess, is our theme of discussion is, it establishes a relationship between the individual and the institutions of governance, right? And thereby it creates a relationship between them. So what is the relationship between the state and an individual? So the Constitution lays down those relationships. And how does it lay down those relationships? It lays down those relationships in the forms of various kinds of rights and duties that it demarcates for the citizens, right? So citizens in exchange get rights so that their rights are secured within the representative form of government, and certain duties and responsibilities that they need to perform. So we the people. So ultimately, what does the Constitution do? It's, as we have noticed in our Indian Constitution, it starts with it, we the people. Who is the source of all power? The people are the source of all power. It is not the government which is the source of power. We the people are the source of power. And we the people are constituting something for ourselves, right? And therefore, all the source of political authorities are from the people itself. So what have we constituted? What have we constituted particularly in India? We have constituted a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. And we want to secure for our citizens justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. And finally, we adopt this constitution, and we are giving to ourselves this constitution. It is not somebody else that we are giving this constitution. We are giving this constitution to ourselves. So we are the source and we are the beneficiary of this constitution. So it is the people which are probably one of the most important source of all powers of the state. Now, secondly, the Constitution establishes the regimes of rights. So what are those rights that we have? We have the right of equality, that is the fundamental rights in Part 3 of the Constitution, right of freedoms, the life and personal liberty, right against exploitation, religious rights, cultural and educational rights, and right to constitutional remedy in Article 32 of the Constitution. Now let's come down to this whole argument of freedom. So what is freedom? There is this debate between, there is a difference between liberty and freedom and so on and so forth. But then I hardly see much of a difference between it, except for the fact that freedom is an internal construct or an attitude or the power or capacity to act as one pleases, right? So it is an attitude or a power or a capacity of an individual to act as he would like to act. And liberty is an external construct or absence of constraints or free from restrictions. However, we'll use this interchangeably as there is still no fruitful consensus as to how far it differs. So, at a common sense, we'll be in both the capacity. First, the capacity or a power to act, and freedom from restrictions. So these are the two senses within which the whole idea of freedom can be summed up. The other two approaches I have already said. The ancient, they equated liberty with citizenship, that is the right to participate in the assembly that debates and make public decisions. That is one that makes public decision for public good, right? Another, that is the moderns, define liberty as a pursuit and protection of private rights. The moderns have come to justify it as private rights. That means the rights of an individual. So what are the rights of those individuals? And those rights have to be provided. It is precisely because a regime has been developed in a representative system of governance. So now let us make it simple. I guess it is getting too technical. So let us make it simple. The fundamental rights chapter in the Constitution of India, the directive principles of state policy in the Constitution of India, and the fundamental duties in Part 4A of the Constitution of India, they all provide for a regime of relationship between the individual and the state. Now, many of the people and many of the commentators have tried to distinguish between rights and duties, and either have seen them in a compartmental manner. That they have started seeing rights only from a rights perspective and started seeing duties only from a duties perspective. I guess we need to make a combination of both. If you see the whole charter of fundamental rights, every right creates a corresponding duty. It's a theory of right that it must create a corresponding duty. That if I have a right to freedom, then it has a corresponding duty on the other not to restrict my freedom, not to confine me, not to enslave me, right? So this is a corresponding duty. And therefore, every other is duty bound to protect my right, right? So the rights and duties go simultaneously. And therefore, that has to be located. When we are locating it within the fundamental rights chapter, we are basically trying to locate it from an individual as well as in some cases like Article 17, we look it as a group form of right, or Article 15 and 16 when we are talking about reservations, we are talking in terms of a group right as well. And when we are talking about religious rights, again, those are certain group rights which have been created. But by and large, we are talking about a right of an individual. Now, on whom is this duty being placed? The duty is being placed upon another individual, that the other individual is going to protect that right at the first place. And secondly, if there is any violation of these rights, then it is a duty incumbent upon the state. It is the duty of the state to protect the right of those individuals because they are fundamental to their development, right? So, when we are talking about responsibility, then there is this responsibility that we have certain freedoms, yes, but then there are certain responsibilities. It automatically creates the responsibility of protecting these rights on every other organ, that is the individual as well as the state. Now let us come to directive principles. What are directive principles? The directive principles are socio-economic. It's a charter of socio-economic rights and justices, right? Since those are not fundamental, but then they are the directions to the state. How are they? They are the directions to the state. That the state is going to maintain certain minimum conditions. How can you enjoy freedom if you are poverty struck, right? If you cannot afford education, if you cannot afford food, if you cannot afford a good life or good recreation, right? So that life is not a life of freedom particularly. It's a life, despite that you are free, it's an undignified life, right? And so therefore, right to liberty is attached with dignity as well. And therefore, this dignity, for this, dignified life, you need to create certain socio-economic conditions whereby an individual or a group of people can enjoy a dignified life, right? And now whose responsibility is that? Now see, this is a charter of rights, though unjustified, but they are directions to the state. So they are the responsibilities of the state to provide those conditions whereby an individual or a group can enjoy those rights, right? That are provided in the Constitution. So it is a duty incumbent upon the state. And lastly, if you see the fundamental duties chapter, Article 51A, and you will see that there are again duties which are put upon the individuals, right? And these duties they have to perform, obviously. Why? For the maintenance of a certain dignified life, for the maintenance of a certain dignified position in the society, or to maintain a certain way of life, right? So I'll take some instances like, say for example, provide by the Constitution. That is a constitutional morality position. If you are not respecting the constitutional morality and its ideals and institutions, this political society will crumble, right? To follow and cherish the noble ideals of the freedom struggle, right? So what are those noble ideals? Those were the ideals of freedom, equality, secularism, right? These were the noble ideals of freedom struggle. To uphold and protect the sovereignty, unity and integrity of India. Yes, everybody should protect the sovereignty, unity and integrity. It's a duty incumbent upon every individual. To defend the country and render national service when called upon to do so. To promote harmony and spirit of common brotherhood. So these are some of the duties which have been imposed upon the Indian citizen, and they need to follow it, right? Because only when you follow these kind of duties, then you can you claim a certain level of there is a certain respectability of a citizen life. To value and preserve the right heritage of our composite culture, to protect and improve national environment, and so on and so forth. So there are these 11 duties which have been prescribed in the fundamental duties chapter. So as we have seen, the location of rights and duties determines the location of responsibilities as well, right? So when we are talking about individual rights, yes, say for example, the right to speech. So there is a corresponding duty upon individuals as well as the state that you are going to protect the right to speech of an individual. Obviously, there are certain restrictions. Say for example, freedoms are not absolute. Obviously, they are not absolute, right? And why they should not be absolute? Because if freedom or absolute freedom to a powerful will lead to an absolute monopoly over resources and things, right? So you just cannot give absolute power to everyone, right? And you cannot, and this will be to the detriment of those who are powerless. And therefore, there has to be a certain balance wherein, or checks and balances wherein the freedoms are not used in a manner, particularly in an absolute manner. So, as we have given the instance that my freedom to speech, despite that I have a freedom to speech, and despite that there is a corresponding duty that nobody is going to restrict my speech, I have a reasonable restriction put upon me that it should not be harmful to others, right? So this harm principle is always there, that my speech should not harm the other, and this is incumbent upon everybody, right? So you cannot castigate people, you cannot put them down. These are harmful speeches, right? And therefore this is not a good kind of a speech, and therefore speeches too are regulated at most of the time. And therefore, what can be regulated and what cannot be regulated are issues of debate every society has to confront at their own times. And therefore, they have to take this historical, discussions into context when we are deciding about what kind of and to what extent freedoms can be exercised or enjoyed, and how much freedom is too much freedom. So this is what we have in terms of now let us take this UNDP Human Development Report. Now, the directive principles of state policy and this Human Development Report of 2000 of the UNDP lays down certain things. Means freedom from what? So freedom from discrimination, freedom from fear, freedom from speech, freedom of speech, freedom from want, freedom to develop and realize one's human potential, freedom from injustices and violations of the rule of law, freedom for decent work without exploitation. These are some of the freedoms which every person must have, right? And therefore, there is a responsibility on somebody else. Means this responsibility is either upon the individual or the state to provide those kind of freedoms without which no individual can be himself, right? Or can realize his own potential or can lead his own development. So these freedoms are important for the development not just of an individual but for the development of the society as well as for the development of a nation. And without freedoms, that developments are not possible. Yes, the responsibilities are obviously within the ambit of law, and the law must regulate, and the citizen must abide by the regulations of law. That is what I feel the whole aspect of freedom remains. Let me come down to some of the substantiation that the Supreme Court has interpreted when it talks about liberty. So when we take up Article 21, it relates to life and personal liberty, that no person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to the procedure established by law. That nobody can be deprived of life and liberty. And what is the scope of life and liberty? And these are some of the Supreme Court cases wherein the Supreme Court has given decisions and has expanded the scope of life, right to life and personal liberty. So right to life means what? Right to live with human dignity. So this is a very important concept that has come up, that it is not just life of an animal, it is to live a dignified life. If we are unable to provide a dignified life, then obviously we are not providing that freedom or that condition wherein a person can enjoy his freedom. Right to a healthy environment. Now this is becoming what you can say a very, very important issue in the coming days. Environment, safe environment, and every day in, day out, we have to deliberate upon it. We are talking about climate change, we are talking about deforestation, we are talking about pollution, we are talking about soil contamination, we are talking about water contamination, and so on and so forth. So all the resources are getting polluted on this earth, and if you need to survive, and if the generations need to survive and live freely, then obviously the environment needs to be protected from corruption, from this kind of a pollution, right? So I remember once Dipankar Gupta wrote an article in the newspaper, and he said how does caste society actually deals with this whole issue of look how it spoils and how it looks at things when it comes to like when we talk about purity and pollution, right? So our private spaces become really pure. So the home becomes really pure, and therefore we build our toilets outside our home, or we go for toilet outside our home, right, on the railway tracks or somewhere. So the public space is an open space, and therefore is open for pollution, right? So this is an ideology of private and public, right? And therefore anybody who means like you won't throw or you won't spit in your house or throw any garbage anywhere in your house, because you consider that your house is a pious place or a space of purity, right? But then you will never think twice while throwing something in the public space. So we are like, the public space is nobody's space, and therefore we can do whatever we want, and we can spoil whatever we want in whatever manner we want this public space. So look at our lakes, our rivers, and we have spoiled it like hell, right? So we are spoiling our water bodies, we are spoiling our air, by creating such kind of pollutants, right? And we don't think of it like that way, and therefore this whole public space needs to be protected, because it is not just you. It is the other person who might not be polluting it, but then suffers from the pollution created by somebody else. Why should that person suffer from the pollution created by somebody else? And that is what the very important, or the crux of the matter. So the pollutant must pay is a kind of a principle that now the court has come to recognize. Protection against hazardous industries. They should not harm your life. Free education at the age of 14 years. Now, the Constitution, Article 21A, provides for free education, at least up to the age of 14 years. These have been recognized by the Supreme Court. Emergency medical aid, right to health, right to privacy, right to shelter, right to livelihood, right to fair trial, speedy trial and legal aid, etc. Natural justice, etc. They're all, that is how they have expanded the scope of Article 21. And this is what includes as a right to life. And these are the conditions which are required, whereby you can exercise your freedom, you can exercise your liberty. So I guess, unless and until we imbibe this constitutional morality, unless and until we consider that this is what we have created for ourselves, that we have created, then it is only then that we are going to make this successful. We are going to lead a better life, right? So these are certain norms which I guess we need to imbibe in our day-to-day life, and that is why celebrating our Constitution is such an important event. And this should not be obviously restricted to 26th November, but it should become a part of our habit. Respecting rights of others should become a part of our habit. Respecting our environment should become a part of our habit. Talking in terms of equality should become a part of our habit. This lockdown has been for years for women, right? So what is new for them? We treat them with inequality. We treat on the basis of caste. We treat on the basis of religion. We treat on the basis of race, and so on and so forth. So I guess we need to treat people equally, and that equality, because we expect the same from other people, right? And that is how it works. So I guess unless and until we imbibe these qualities, actually to my knowledge and to my understanding, it is equality which is, I guess, one of the core principles of our human existence. Unless and even all liberties must fall within the ambit of equality. That means equal liberties for all. And unless and until we create a situation of equal liberties for all, obviously somebody is going to be exploited. And therefore, we need to talk in terms of equality. We need to talk in terms of liberty. We need to talk in terms of justice and fraternity. And that is how we imbibe this principle in our day-to-day life while we are celebrating this such a great constitution that we as people have created for ourselves. I guess I will stop here. I have made my point, and I think there will be a lot of questions that might come up, and I'll be able to answer those questions in the meantime, if there are any.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for an enlightening and inspiring talk. We are very sorry and we regret for the inconvenience caused due to mic and camera of the participants. I'm sure your deliberations on the topic will definitely be beneficial to all our listeners. Now, going to the question and answer session, due to the shortage of time, we have restricted the number of questions being asked to our eminent guests. Sir, with your permission, I would like to forward those questions to you. May I, sir?
Sure.
Yes, sir. So, first question. We say we are the largest democracy of the world, but is democracy instilled in each one of us? And if not, what are we doing to improve that?
Right. I guess that's a very important question. and that is I have in the beginning pointed out. This is where even Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar points out that essentially we are a political democracy with an essentially undemocratic society. Our society is based upon hierarchies of caste, class, gender, right? These are the hierarchies upon which we have organized our society, and therefore giving up these hierarchies is the most important practice that we must be imbibing in ourselves. So let us talk about our family, our home, right? Is there a democracy at home? Do we discuss everything at home?
Yes.
Does everybody's opinion is valued at home, right?
Yes.
So let us practice democracy, right? And let us practice democracy in our institutions, our classrooms, right? Let us see what is the composition of our classroom. Is there a diversified composition of students in the classroom? Is everybody represented in your classroom, or there is a similar kind of students coming in your classroom, a similar class of students coming into your classroom, right? What do you discuss? Do you discuss the matters of do you discuss the issues of poverty? Do you discuss the issues of caste discrimination? Right? So let us face it. So you cannot wrap things under the carpet. You need to take them out, deal with them, deal in the front, at the face of it. And only when you are doing it, right, then I guess we are really addressing the issues of the society. And that is going to make our society more democratic, right? Putting things on the carpet will be harming the democratic process. And we'll be actually chasing what you can say, a chimera, something which we cannot achieve. That Cinderella's, we'll be chasing a Cinderella, right, with the boot in our hand, right? And that Cinderella we won't be able to find. So democracy is like that Cinderella. So I guess we need to ask ourselves those questions. Are we talking about equality within the society? Are we talking about freedoms within the society? Do we talk about free speech? Do we talk about freedom of expression? Do we talk about freedom to do things and all that kind of stuff? What do we discuss when we are discussing, right? Are we enlarging the scope of these freedoms? If you are not enlarging the scope of these freedoms, then we are missing something. We are not enlarging the scope of democracy, right? So therefore, it is very essential that we in essence talk in terms of those enlargement of those terms of democracies. So yes, the Constitution preamble says liberty, equality, fraternity. They are very, very important, right? And we need to discuss them.
Yes, I'm sure the viewers would really apply this in their daily lives.
Right.
Now, moving to the second question, sir. Now, addition of Article 51, which promotes independent thinking among citizens, remains a principle in our Constitution and not a law. Do you think it should be made into a law? And if so, how, sir?
Look, Babasaheb once said, howsoever good a constitution might be, if the people who are working the constitutions are not good enough, then whatever law you make is going to be bad enough, right? Howsoever constitution are bad, and if the people who are working out that constitution are good enough, then the constitution will stand as good constitution. So it depends upon the quality of the people. It depends upon what kind of a people we are, right? It is the quality of the people which determines. Law has its own limitation. We can make endless laws, but if the society doesn't want to respect those laws, then what can we do, right? Say for example, when we talk about rights, right? When we talk about many issues, means like somebody wants to go with his friend, or somebody wants to marry somebody, or somebody wants to eat something, or somebody wants to do this or that, right? If the society is not willing to concede that person that right, then how are you going to protect that right? Yes, law helps, but when a society respects the right of a people, then that law helps in a more effective manner. And that is where Ambedkar, when he says that democracy is an outer covering of society which is essentially undemocratic. So these principles need to be addressed at the basic level. So make n number of laws and you will not address this question unless and until there is a level of awareness, there is a level of respectability to the rights in the society itself, right? And therefore, the sensitization of the society, the awareness of the society in terms of what are essential for us is a very, very important task.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. So last question.
Sure.
Why there is not an essential subject to all students about our Indian Constitution? We study about it only when we appear for competitive exams.
True. I thank you for raising that question. I am of an opinion, as the earlier sir has also said, and there was a question which was put up by one of the participants that how do we take this constitution to the people, right? How can we make it a part of everyday life? It's like those institutions which are duty bound to carry out the functions of the constitution. If they themselves are not teaching the constitution, then how can the constitution be carried out? The educations of the agents of socialization. What are the agents of socialization, particularly in a public sphere? The agents of socialization particularly are the educational institutions where you go and learn, right? Right? There are various other societies, the religious societies, the other societies, clubs and other kind of stuff, right? They too are agents of socialization. They should be taking up this issue. Our home, our parents, in terms of like talking about these issues, right? So, but to the extent, what I feel is like that first, the education institution, we can fairly get the constitution to the students, and it not just for the arts, not just for political science or sociology or economic student. They should be taught to the engineering student, the computer guy, right? The website guy who makes those websites but doesn't know the constitution at all, right? He constitutes something but doesn't know the constitution which constitutes him, right? So he should also be able to know that concept. So in every discipline, in some form or the other, constitution needs to be taught, right? And it needs to be made more interesting rather than boring. It should not like provisions. I know it can be really, law can be really boring, I tell you, right? It has to be made more interesting, more participatory in that sense. And at different levels, obviously. The engagements can differ from one place to other. So if you are teaching a kid, then it has to be in a completely different and in a playful form. If you are teaching to a college-going student, it has to be more participatory, right? Because they can understand things, right? If it is a university level where people go and take research, it can be more scholastic, more research-based and all that kind of stuff, right? So at different levels, it can be introduced. So I guess, yes, it's a very, very important thing. It has to be introduced at all levels of education. And let me tell you, I guess this constitution gives us the best life principles, the best values that we can cherish. We do not need anything else. Let us make this a dharma of our life. Let us make it a religion of our political life, and a social life, and a cultural life, and an economic life. And I guess we can find out our way to a better future. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, for answering the queries and sharing with us your precious time and experience. It was a very interesting and significant talk.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. I wish to extend my sincere gratitude towards our speakers who have enlightened and motivated us through their words. Your presence and talk has definitely enriched this webinar on this day, and for this, we remain ever grateful. I would like to thank our principal, Dr. K.T. Thomas, sir, for giving us this opportunity to hear from such knowledgeable experts. Also, I'd like to appreciate the efforts taken by the organizing committee for making this program a grand success. I remain most grateful to the attention with which the audience sat through this webinar. Thank you all. I would like to kindly request everyone to please stand for the national anthem.
पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उज्जल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगल दायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे